What's this? Some sort of official-looking document. Fourth Dimension Fool Killer is scheduled to make a major announcement at the conclusion of this week's video. It is heavily rumored that he will be announcing his retirement and returning to the Fourth Dimension forever. Can it be? Am I finally free? Okay, we've got some important stuff to get to this week, and I'm very, very excited to hear about this big announcement. So, let's just get this video out of the way, shall we? Before I discuss the show, I have to clarify something again, and I can't believe I'm still talking about this, but it seems that some people are still getting the wrong impression about my Velvet Sky comments, specifically the ones I made last week in regards to the angle with ODB. Here's the thing with that. Yes, it was kayfabed. Yes, the issues are being exaggerated, but the point that they're using ODB to illustrate here is that Velvet's longevity and prominence in this company are due in large part to her sex appeal. And you know what? Whether you love it, whether you hate it, you can't deny that there is some truth to this. If Velvet wants to be taken seriously as an athlete and not be viewed as a sex object by the horny male demographic, then maybe she should stop rubbing her crotch along the ring ropes when she makes her entrance. You know, maybe she should stop directing the cameraman to check out her ass when she does this. Maybe she should get her breast implants taken out. Fans take Sarah Del Rey seriously as an athlete. Does she do all that stuff? No. And you can crap on me all you want for pointing this out, but until last week, that was never a perception that Velvet discouraged, okay? If Velvet's tired of being the sexy poster girl and wants to be seen as a serious competitor, hey, I sympathize. But she's got her work cut out for her because she's pretty much got to change the way she's done everything for the last 4 years if she wants any chance of pulling that off. And she's not off to a great start. This week, the show began with her brawling with ODB backstage. And honestly, I didn't hate this. I thought this was alright. It wasn't incredible or anything, but we've seen much worse from both these women. So the brawl itself I thought was okay. But guess what? It ended with Velvet getting stripped down to her undies. Gee, I wonder why. And also, this angle exemplified really well something else that I talked about recently. ODB cannot work as a heel. It has nothing to do with her performance necessarily, but rather with how people react to her. Because ODB has always been really popular with casual fans, but when they tried to turn her heel in the past, it didn't work. Because the fans just didn't want to boo her. All it did was kill her face heat. And that was definitely at work here too. I mean, the production team had to turn up the canned heat when the women got into the arena. The crowd seemed very confused. There were some small chants for Velvet here and there, but for the most part, you can tell they really weren't sure how to react. Even at the end, when ODB was beating Velvet down, she was getting kind of a mixed response, and I don't know if that's going to change. But that was not because of any lack of effort on their part. My feelings on this are still the same. I'm not a fan of either of these women or this feud, but I'll begrudgingly admit that it's been pretty well done so far. And certainly better than the Winter/Angelina past lives time-traveling lesbians angle. Good God, I wish I was making that up. But enough about all that stuff. My favorite part of this show was the segment with Beer Money, Bischoff, and Alex Shelley. Bobby Roode's selling the shoulder injury, so he can't wrestle, he can't defend the tag titles, so Bischoff tries to strip them of the belts. Then Alex Shelley comes out and he volunteers to sub for Roode at Slammiversary to defend the honor of the tag titles, so to speak. And while it did break my heart to hear that Chris Sabin is going to be out for the rest of the year, I loved this segment. Because believe it or not, this is exactly what I was hoping they would do. Screw the thing that ate Chris Harris, okay? Alex Shelley was the perfect choice for this spot for all the reasons he stated. There was a big mutual respect between the Guns and Beer Money that grew out of that Best of 5 series last year. They're generally regarded as the two best tag teams in this company these days. I think management sees it that way, and most of the fans definitely see it that way. So putting Storm and Shelley together, at least temporarily, makes perfect sense. I mean, why not put the two halves of your two best tag teams together? That sounds great! Besides, we know they want to start pushing Bobby Roode as a singles guy, and honestly, I think Shelley should be the #1 pick to be Storm's new partner when that happens. And when Sabin's healthy again, the Guns can take over the tag team division like they should. That's their spot to lose at this point. But until then, I say let's roll with beer guns. I love that idea. If for no other reason, then it's something that would and should happen. It's logical, and it makes sense. There was actually a lot of stuff like that this week. For example, they had a match with Crimson versus Matt Hardy, and then Samoa Joe came out and Crimson fought him off. Guess what? Good match. It got a little time. It had a clean finish, and it was followed by simple yet logical pay-per-view hype. That seems like the easiest thing in the world to pull off, and it really is. And yet, these writers constantly manage to screw it up somehow. But they got it right here. Crimson gets some more credibility and another notch in the win column. His Slammiversary match with Joe gets some hype. I have no complaints. Nor do I have any complaints about Kaz versus Brian Kendrick. An X Division match that actually went to a time limit draw? Time limit draw. That's a 10-minute match. Aside from that big battle royal a few weeks ago, when was the last time a match went that long on this show? I can't even remember. And it was a really good match, too. This did a lot to help rebuild Brian Kendrick because Kaz couldn't finish him off. In fact, I was so pleased with this that I didn't even get pissed off at the DQ finish when Abyss came out because it hyped a pay-per-view match in a simple, logical way that made sense. Kaz and Kendrick didn't lose anything here because the beatdown only happened after they were spent from wrestling for 10 plus minutes. If Abyss had run in after a typical 90-second TV match, that would not have been the case. And this set up what I assume is going to be a triple threat for the X title at Slammiversary in a way that makes it clear that the match is coming. Again, no complaints. Then they had the AJ Styles Bully Ray segment. Good promos from both guys, and it set up a last man standing match at the pay-per-view. I don't know why they're doing a last man standing match when they haven't even done a regular match yet. They could have had one at Sacrifice if the writers hadn't thrown Tommy Dreamer in there for no discernible reason. But I'm going to give them a pass on this one, because for once, they actually announced a big gimmick match in advance. They did it in such a way that made the match look significant and let you know in no uncertain terms that the match is happening. This was like 10 steps above what they normally do, which is like having Mike Tenay mention it in passing when you're not even paying attention, or not announce the gimmick, maybe not even announce the match, and then when the pay-per-view starts, they just say, oh, it's going to be a last man standing match now. You see, we could have announced this a long time ago and promoted it for weeks, but we didn't, because we're stupid. Isn't this so much better? Now you have a chance to actually get fans excited for this match. Imagine that. So right there they had 4 segments that were simple, well put together, did a good job of hyping pay-per-view matches, and were, at least for this show, uncharacteristically logical. Thank you. Now aside from the continuing stupidity of the Winter Angelina thing, I was genuinely enjoying the show up to this point. So far this has been very solid and I'm liking it. Then Eric Young showed up. Ha-ha! They're still doing this angle with Anderson where he's dressing up like old school Sting to get under Sting's skin and all that stuff. For the record, I don't think it's working. It doesn't seem to be getting over at all. But then they bring out Eric Young dressed up like the Great Muta. They have a match, then Gunner comes out, presumably to distract Eric. But instead, he distracts Anderson, and the man who's about to challenge Sting for the World Heavyweight title at one of TNA's biggest pay-per-views of the year gets pinned by Eric Young.
Oh, what a bunch of bull. Oh, what a bunch of bull. Oh, what a bunch of bull. 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 What a bunch of bull.
Oh, God. Oh, my God. I am flabbergasted that anyone in their right mind thought this was a good idea. First of all, The match was way more competitive than it should have been. Considering the spots these guys have been in, Ken Anderson should not have any trouble beating a jackass like Eric Young. That's like Randy Orton having a tough time beating Zack Ryder. This should have been a complete squash, and had Anderson spent several minutes just punishing Eric relentlessly and then got distracted by Sting instead of Gunner, which led to the fluke pin, it would not have been nearly as damaging as this. But instead, Anderson was actually having some difficulty finishing this loser off. He got distracted by a guy who went out there to help him, and then, to make matters even worse, he actually got outsmarted by the guy with the brain damage gimmick. I repeat, the #1 contender to the World Heavyweight title got outsmarted by the comedy jobber with the brain damage gimmick.
You people are fools!
Any goodwill this episode had built up in the common sense and logic department just went out the damn window. I guess I should count my blessings that Orlando Jordan never showed up, and believe me, I am. But good lord, if they thought this was going to sell the Slammiversary World title match, they need to think a lot harder. Then they had the main event, Angle and Morgan versus Jarrett and Steiner. Of course, there's absolutely no acknowledgement of the fact that Angle brought in Steiner just a few months ago to fight Jeff Jarrett and the rest of Immortal, but now Steiner and Jarrett are working together for some reason. That was dumb. Pretty standard stuff here, really nothing to talk about, but the ending was magnificent. Karen comes out again, and they do that injury angle where it ends with her lying motionless at the bottom of a flight of stairs. If she's not dead, then I have to assume this means she's going to be off TV, at least for a little while, because that didn't look like something she could come back from right away. And all I have to say about that is thank you, thank you, thank you. Now, the funny thing is, I actually turned the show off at that point, because the main event was over, so I thought the show was over. I guess I forgot which show I was watching, because apparently there was another segment after this. All night long, they've been doing this angle where Bischoff got served with papers, and he thought the network was going to make this big announcement that they were pulling the plug on him and Hogan, and they were both going to be fired. And it was so obviously a fake out. They just went so overboard with it that pretty much every person on Earth knew it was going to be a swerve except for them. And sure enough, turns out it was Foley who got fired. It seems this was done to write Foley off TV because he's not going to be re-signing with the company. My question is, if they knew relations had gone sour with Foley, why the hell did they put him in this spot in the first place only to write him off TV after just a few weeks? And I hate to say I told you so, but you could have had Desmond Wolfe be the network representative and gone forward with this story without missing a beat. Hell, they just brought Wolfe back to TV on Explosion anyway. Was there something wrong with that idea? Stupid. But you know what? Eric Young and the time-traveling lesbians aside, this was pretty decent. I may bitch and complain about it a lot these days, but I also give credit where credit's due, and this was not a bad show. One of the more enjoyable impacts they've had in a while, actually. Though, bear in mind, I did not see the final segment, and this may just be due to me being in such a great mood about the other big announcement that's about to be made. A big announcement that will deliver and will surely not be some lame fake out unlike this one. And so, without further ado, let's hear it, Fourth Dimension Full Killer. The floor is yours. Let's hear your big announcement. Okay. Well, I've thought a lot about this. I've done a lot of soul searching these past few months, and this was a really hard decision to make. But after careful consideration, and after almost a year of me being here, I think the time has finally come to officially announce that this pathetic ass clown right here is a Chris Sabin nut hugger. That's it? That's it. Ass. You bastard.